Welcome back to the deep dive. We have an extraordinary collection of source material today. A detailed video transcript that attempts to knit together deep biblical prophecy, ancient linguistic roots, and what initially sounds like, well, a completely random personal anecdote.
Yeah, it really does. And it all converges into this single cohesive timeline for global judgment.
It's a radical synthesis, for sure. And our mission today is to navigate what the source speaker actually labels the Red Hawk saga.
Right. We need to unpack that, extract the core insights, and try to understand the mechanism, this universal cipher they talk about.
Based on cuneiform and Paleo-Hebrew.
Exactly. The speaker claims it unlocks these hidden truths about cosmic judgment and ascension. It's really a fundamental rejection of a lot of religious tradition.
You can see that rejection right from the start, can't you? The source sets this critical framework, mentions having a live earthquake feed running in their office.
Yeah, tracking those big quakes. An 8.0 in Antarctica, then that 8.8 in Russia. They see it as essential, for understanding the prophetic timeline they've mapped out.
And visually, they have this picture.
Oh, yeah, the picture of Asu, who, we'd commonly understand as Jesus in Christianity, teaching the elders in the temple.
And the point of that is?
Well, they hold it up as sort of proof that traditional religious leaders are fundamentally misinformed. It establishes the source speaker as this dissenting voice, using these ancient tools to bypass institutional knowledge that they don't know Jack, basically.
Okay, so let's dive into the event that really kicks off this whole narrative. It starts with a storm.
A really intense thunderstorm, yeah.
Yeah.
Our source looks outside and finds something pretty unusual at the base of a huge locust tree in their yard.
Which was?
A red-tailed hawk. Completely soaking wet, obviously, from the storm. But the strange part was its demeanor.
How so?
It was just unusually docile. And if the speaker walked right up, put an umbrella over it, even gently pet its head.
Which a wild hawk normally wouldn't do.
Exactly. Wild hawks just don't behave like that. So right away, this wasn't seen as just some random accident. It was viewed as an orchestrated sign.
Okay, but then the story takes a turn when they seek expert help, right? The bird sanctuary.
Yeah, and the source was apparently quite reluctant. They felt the staff member they talked to was maybe more interested in showing off their own expertise than really listening to the details about the hawk being so weirdly calm.
And the outcome wasn't good.
No, it was tragic. The sanctuary staff diagnosed the hawk as very emaciated, gave it maybe a 10 to 15% chance of survival.
Okay.
They gave it painkillers, IV fluids, but the bird died overnight.
And the source speaker found that suspicious.
Deeply suspicious.
Yeah.
They basically speculate that the intervention itself, the hydration, the drugs, might have actually caused the death. They compare it to other alleged failures of, institutional experts.
I have to pause there for a second. That's a crucial pivot. Attributing the hawk's death not just to it being sick, but potentially to negligence, maybe even linked to institutional hubris. Does the source offer anything beyond their own suspicion for that, like any actual evidence?
No, not external scientific evidence per se. It's more that the source sees it as confirming a pattern. The idea that the institutional system, be it medical, religious, whatever, consistently dismisses real insight and ends up harming what it claims it wants to save.
So this personal tragedy becomes confirmation of the bigger prophetic picture for them.
Exactly. And that's when the source lays out these crucial 3 witnesses to anchor the whole saga firmly in prophecy.
Right, the witnesses. Okay, let's unpack those, because this is how we get from a sad story about a hawk to a cosmic sign.
Precisely. So witness number 1. A conversation just days before about maybe buying an old lawnmower.
Yeah.
And the seller had specifically called it a red hawk.
Okay. A mower named Red Hawk.
Witness number 2. The actual physical red-tailed hawk they found, the real bird.
Got it.
And the 3rd witness, the real anchor point, the location. The hawk was found right at the base, at the roots of this huge locust tree.
Okay, that feels like a massive leap, doesn't it? Taking a mower name, a sick hawk, and a common tree and saying, this is an undeniable, orchestrated sign from the Father. How do they justify jumping from that very local observation to some universal cosmic sign?
Well, the justification is all in the linguistic interpretation. That's the key. The first step is figuring out what the red hawk or the red bird means.
Okay.
The source claims the Father prompted them with a question, who is the red bird? And the answer, derived from their cipher, is wormwood, or Nibiru.
The red, fiery bird people sometimes link to judgment.
That's the one. And this red bird, wormwood, is directly equated with Asu, the returning judge figure.
So the hawk that died in the storm is interpreted as a symbol, a manifestation of Asu coming back to judge, and not just the merciful figure people usually talk about.
Exactly. Through their reading of passages like Matthew 20, Proverbs 7, Asu has this dual function. He's the Lord of the vineyard, right?
Yeah.
The one who executes judgment. But he's also the good man returning from a long journey. And critically, they link him to the young man of Proverbs 7 who was pierced. The idea is the returning good man is there to wreak havoc, basically, to judge the establishment.
Right. Now we're getting to the core of how they do this. The whole weight of this interpretation seems to rest on that locust tree connecting Asu to a specific time. How does the Cipher make that jump from a tree in the yard to a cosmic timeline?
This is where they claim the genius of the Cipher comes in. It works by supposedly stripping away later linguistic additions like vowel points in Hebrew and getting down to ancient logograms or core roots.
Okay.
So the tree was a locust tree, L-O-C-U-S-T. The source claims that if you apply their ancient cipher, you ignore context, look at anagrams, and they focus on the Latin root L-O-C-U-S.
Wait, Latin? I thought the Cipher was Paleo-Hebrew and cuneiform. Why jump to Latin?
Well, the assertion is that the core root structure of all languages ultimately traces back to these primordial cuneiform and logographic concepts. So they claim L-O-C-U-S literally means appointed. Yeah, like an appointed place, an appointed thing, or crucially, an appointed time. So the implication becomes pretty staggering. The red bird, Asu, showing up at the locust tree is a clear physical sign that he returns at the day appointed. It reinforces the timeline they see in Proverbs 7.
That is highly interpretive. Wow. But it connects the anecdote right to the calendar. And there's one last bit of wordplay, isn't there? Linking the hawk to Ascension.
Yes, the Rapture connection, which is absolutely paramount to their thesis.
Because the red-tailed hawk is a raptor.
Right. And the source points out that the word raptor shares the exact same Latin root that our sound as rapture, which means to take or snatch away.
So the red hawk, the
It's all
raptor,
the locust tree, the appointed place time.
is the father sign that the physical snatching away the rapture is imminent. That's the convergence.
That's the convergence they present.
Yeah. Okay, let's shift gears slightly to the why. If this is an appointed day of judgment, what's the sin being judged? Because the source gives an extremely radical definition here.
It is indeed radical. The ultimate purpose of this judgment, according to the source, is to make an end of sin. And sin is defined explicitly as procreation, sexuality.
Procreation itself is the sin being judged.
That's the claim.
Yep.
It puts the entire focus of God's current judgment squarely against humanity's ability to reproduce.
And they connect this directly to biblical prophecy about physical destruction.
They do. They claim the judgment involves the abomination made desolate, a phrase usually tied to the temple's destruction. But the source interprets it as a metaphor for the uterus.
For the uterus. Seriously.
Seriously. And they link this metaphor directly to what's happening now. High sterility rates, falling birth rates, miscarriages. They argue these are literal physical manifestations of judgment against the organ of procreation.
Wow. That's a powerful and frankly disturbing assertion, connecting ancient prophecy to modern biological stats like that.
It completely reframes the whole idea of sin-based judgment, doesn't it? Moves it away from, say, moral failings and squarely into biological function.
And all of this hinges on getting the timing right. The source argues that the traditional ways of understanding biblical feasts, like Passover or Tish B'Av, are just wrong.
Yeah, fundamentally flawed. They argue the traditional calendar relies on a compromised Babylonian system. They assert the true first month of the year isn't Abib or Nisan, it's Tishri.
Tishri. Okay, and how does the Cipher play into that?
Well, they apply their cipher method to the root word tish,
Yeah.
and they claim tish itself is an ancient root word meaning sexuality or shame.
Sexuality or shame.
Right, so the timing of Tishri lines up with the Feast of Trumpets, which they identify as the true day of judgment, specifically judgment against sexuality and procreation.
Okay, so the calendar critique loops right back to the judgment narrative, particularly that story of the adulterous wife in Proverbs 7.
Exactly. They apply the same method to the traditional name for the first month, ABB.
Right.
The source claims if you correctly divide Abib into two logograms, Abis and IB, it means window and corner.
Window and corner. Why is that
Right.
significant?
Because Proverbs 7 describes the adulterous wife, who they identify as the whore of Babylon, seducing the young man Asu at her window and corner. They see this as the linguistic smoking gun.
So this sets up the ultimate theological conflict in the source material. If the whore of Babylon is this adulterous wife, who is she, according to them?
And here's the really shocking claim. Asu is coming back to judge his adulterous wife, who the source identifies as the established church, the fallen religious system.
The church is the adulterous wife.
That's the assertion. The source insists Asu is not returning for his bride, because the true bride, according to Revelation 21, is the New Jerusalem, the city he went to prepare.
So the whole concept of the church as the bride of Christ.
Is dismissed completely. They call it a religious snare, something they trace back to the Apostle Paul.
I mean, that requires abandoning one of the absolute bedrock ideas in Christianity. The returning figure isn't a loving bridegroom. He's an angry judge coming back because of a betrayal.
Precisely. The argument is the true bride is a place, a spiritual city, and the organized church is the entity being judged as the adulteress for failing to uphold the Father's true laws.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's connect the judgment to the physical act of ascension. The source argues this taking away involves a literal, physical, flying object.
They look at how spirit is traditionally translated, like when John was taken up by an angel in the spirit. The Greek word is pneuma.
Okay.
The source claims pneuma derives from the ancient Hebrew ruach. And here's the kicker. They claim the ancient drawing, the logogram for ruach, was depicted as a saucer with a door in the middle.
A saucer with a door?
Yeah. Suggesting John wasn't taken up abstractly, in some spiritual sense, but was literally carried away in a physical saucer.
That's throwing down a direct challenge to centuries of abstract theology, replacing it with a concrete physical vehicle. And this thinking extends even to the most famous prophecy of the Messiah's return, riding on an ass or a colt.
Right. They completely reject the traditional image of the humble donkey. They use their cipher on the Aramaic word for ass or colt, which is kamor.
Kamor, and what do they say that means?
Through their interpretation, the source claims kamor literally translates to his metal disc of silver, or silver metal disc.
So the conclusion within their logic is pretty inescapable. The Messiah comes back not on a humble animal, but on a silver flying disc, a saucer, a UFO.
It's complete narrative convergence, you see. The red hawk, the raptor, is the sign of the physical snatching away. It happens at the appointed time, the locust tree. And the vehicle for that ascension is the physical silver disc, the askamor, that they say is referenced across ancient texts.
So the whole methodology, summarized, is using these ancient ciphers to unlock truths they believe were hidden by religious tradition.
Exactly. And the source feels vindicated, saying everything they've taught for 25 years is now happening exactly like I said it would.
So what does this all mean? We've really navigated this incredibly intricate web. Personal story, cosmic judgment, sexual ethics, radical linguistics, all converging on this theme of a physical taking away.
Yeah, and the core message really holds. The red hawk, raptor, on the locust tree, appointed, is presented as the Father's physical sign for the physical snatching away.
It's a forceful argument they're making that the true meaning of Scripture has been actively obscured, replaced by abstract terms that deliberately hide literal physical events described in the ancient roots.
Yeah, their methodology really asks you to discard pretty much every traditional symbol you've ever known. It's a total reset.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. The source claims the ancient word for spirit was drawn as a saucer with a door, and the Aramaic word for ass meant his silver disc. So why? Why would the literal physical vehicle of visitation, whether you call it a silver disc or a saucer, have been so completely and uniformly replaced across cultures and languages? Why do we have abstract concepts like spirit or ass in our common understanding instead?
Was it like intentional obfuscation by religious leaders, as the source implies, or just the natural way language evolves, distancing us from something our ancestors maybe saw as totally concrete and physical?
That is definitely something worth exploring further.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Red Hawk saga.
We'll see you next time.